Hi there, I'm Misty Purcell. I'm a cross-stitch designer, and I am going to be talking to you today about how I finished my designs Who and Boo that are releasing at Needlework Expo in August of 2021. How I finished them with the ruched ribbon that's two different colors combined. Vonna Pfeiffer has a great tutorial about how to do ruched ribbon on pillows with beads, and this is not intended to replace that. It's a great video, but I thought that it might be overwhelming if you've never done ruched ribbon to try to process doing it with the beads and then trying to adapt it to this. So I thought it might be simpler if I gave a quick little demonstration. It's very straightforward about how to do it with two different colors of ribbon. So this is Who, which has already been all ruched up here. And this is stitched on 32 count dirty linen. It's Belfast. It's by Zweigart, so it's not hand dyed, using DMC and Weeks Dye Works flosses. And then the ruched ribbon is from Lady Dot Creates, and it's creamsicle and licorice. So the first thing I want to mention is that I had just enough ribbon to do this, and then basically I cut the ribbon in half. So it's 3 yards, so I gave myself 1.5 yards for this, and then I have 1.5 yards left for this, and I used pretty much the entire 1.5 yards ruching around this. So when I normally finish pillows, I measure out, as Vonna says, 3/4 of an inch. But on this one, I did that all around, and on the bottom, I accidentally measured out a 1/2 inch from the border and trimmed. So then I was forced to do a 1/2 inch from the border, and that ended up being fortunate because then I had enough ribbon. And I think if I'd used my normal seam allowance of sewing or cutting 3/4 of an inch away from the border and sewing a 1/4 inch seam around, I don't think I'd have had quite enough ribbon. So just be aware that if you are stitching on a lower count, such as 28 or 14, or if you do give yourself 3/4 of an inch away from the border rather than a 1/2 inch on 32 count or 16 count, you may need additional ribbon. But 1 pack of creamsicle and licorice will be enough otherwise. And if you're stitching on like a 36 count or a 40 count, you should be fine. Okay, so let's get started. So Who is all done, and we're going to do Boo. So I just use sewing thread. I've already threaded my needle and I knot it. I use a quilter's knot. I don't know if you can see that very well. I don't know if I can see it to show you very well. Let me turn on the light here. So basically, with a quilter's knot, you lay the thread over your needle and wrap it around a couple of times. I think I usually do about 3. Then you're going to hold the coils of the wrap between your 2 fingers. So I'm right-handed, so I do that. Take my left hand and pull the needle through, and you're just pulling the thread through, and then you get a knot there. So that's how you do a quilter's knot. If that wasn't sufficient, you can try to Google some tutorials on quilter's knots, and I just trimmed off the extra tail. So now I'm going to take the 2 ends of ribbon, and I've ironed these. So this is rayon ribbon, and I just ironed it on a low setting. Just to get it flat. So let me get the other end here. And so you can see that I put the creamsicle on top and the licorice underneath. So I don't know if I'm starting this exactly the way that Vonna does, but it's pretty close. So you should check out her tutorials. And I think you could add beads and it would look very nice, but I just felt like I had enough going on with this that I wasn't going to add beads. But you could use her tutorial and follow it just using the 2 colors of ribbon and add some beads as well. So I'm just going to pierce the ribbon and do a couple little stitches. Like, I think this is how Vonna does it. I haven't watched her tutorial in a while, but this is how I learned to ruche ribbon, was from Vonna. So I really recommend that you check out her ruched ribbon tutorial and her other tutorials. Okay, so what I like to do, and I think Vonna recommends this, is start on the bottom. And I have it facing me so I can see how it looks on the front. Since I'm right-handed, I tend to like to work from right to left. So I'd start in the middle with my stitching, and I'm going to come up in the pillow back through the ribbon just to secure the ribbon. And hopefully you can see that. Sorry if the lighting's not great. Let me see if I can move it a little bit. My camera's kind of in the way of the lighting. Okay. Okay, so then I'm just going to be doing, I'm just moving this with my hands. I'm just making the ruffles. Okay, just like that. So I've scooted the ribbon, and then I'm going to take a stitch, and I'm trying to get it right on the seam line there, basically. This is very forgiving, so that's good because you don't have to be super consistent and have it turn out fine. Okay, and then you're just pulling tight. Let me see if it's focusing well. Okay, I think that might be a little better. All right, so hopefully you can see that okay. Let's keep going. So again, I'm just gonna pull up another bunch of ribbon there and take a little stitch kind of along the seam line. Let me try turning the light off and see if that's any better. And if I zoom in, is that better or worse? Whoa. Is that better? Well, we'll try that. It's too bad this isn't live, so you could give me some feedback. Okay. So you can see, I'm just trying to keep the two ribbons kind of in line, but I'm not, I haven't like glued them together or anything. This is just being done by hand, just holding them together by hand. Okay, so you can see we're starting to get a nice little edge here. Just gonna keep going. So I've chosen sewing thread that matches my top ribbon color. My backing fabric is also, the color is off from the light. It's not this yellow looking, but it's more of a pinky orange. So you don't have to make the backing match your ribbon. The time that I think it's important for the trim to match the back is if I'm doing pom-pom trim, because then I might have some stitches showing on the backing fabric as I'm kind of whip stitching around the pom-poms. So then I think it's important. But for ribbon, I don't think it matters. It's just whatever fabric you want to use that you think will look good for your piece. And now it doesn't seem to be focusing. Let's try again. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to try to get to a corner just to show you. You could also experiment if you wanted to with putting the black ribbon on top and the orange underneath, and you could obviously do this with other colors of ribbon. Sorry about shaking the camera there, I accidentally hit it. So you can see, you know, this isn't perfect. It's gonna look fine in the end. It gets irregular, it gets ruffly, it doesn't matter. So don't sweat it unless something really veers out of control. You know, you don't need to redo. That's the beauty of this, it's forgiving. Having a little trouble grabbing the fabric. Ow. And then I stabbed myself. If you have a thimble and you like using a thimble, this might be a good time to get it out. It's a little easier to push the needle through the fabric and ribbon with a thimble. It's just, I always feel like thimbles are clunky for me. I just don't use them that often, so I guess I just rather let my finger suffer a bit, having to push through all those layers. Okay, so I'm on a corner. I'm just continuing on with what I'm doing. Okay, so you're just bunching it up when you get it around the corner. Oh dear. Let's turn off Apple TV. Well, I'm keeping it real, people. This is real life. Okay. Okay, so we're just continuing to go around the corner. It's not anything complicated. My thread's getting low, so I'll talk about that in a minute. If you did run out of ribbon, as long as you add more ribbon, it's easy enough to add in new ribbon. It's hard to get it where you can see it and then also have it do what I want it to do. I hold it a little bit differently myself than what I need to do for the camera. Okay, so you can see how that's coming along. Again, this is not perfectly regular. It doesn't matter. This is not perfectly regular. It's fine. It looks good. So don't worry that everything's not exact. Don't let it bother you. Or if that kind of thing does bother you, then maybe don't do ruched ribbon. But unless you can be very perfect about it, I can't be very perfect about it, so when you get to a point where your thread has run out, I would just, I'm gonna go a little bit longer, but you would just basically go down wherever your last stitch was, and I would just come out, you know, down here through the fabric, make a knot, and hide that. Well, I'll just show you now. Okay. So going down where my thread's coming up, and then I want to come out on the backing fabric. Okay, can you see that? All right, and then I would just wrap this like a quilter's knot, but I'd just do it like a couple of times and go back in where my thread is currently coming out. Hopefully you'll be able to see it reasonably well. It's kind of hidden by the ribbon. Again, it's super awkward to try to angle is so you can see it. So I already popped the knot through. Now you can just clip. You heard that little snap. That was the knot popping into the fabric. Okay, and then when I would start my next thread, I'd do the quilter's knot again, and you can just pop it into the fabric, come up where you stopped, and carry on. So I hope that was helpful, and turns out super cute. So it's kind of a fun variation on ruched ribbon to just use 2 colors, gives it a little bit of a different effect. So I hope, yeah, that you've enjoyed this tutorial. You can find me at Misty Purcell on YouTube. This is my FlossTube channel. My website is luminousfiberarts.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook also as Luminous Fiber Arts.